Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys making some time to check the video out and spend a little time with me. And guys, today we're going to be talking about rods again, and specifically how much money should you spend on a rod, either a bait caster or spinning rod. I get a lot of questions on this. I get a lot of questions on rods in general. So what I really want to do today is to talk a little bit about price and what makes rods cost more or less, and how much, in my opinion, you should spend on a rod in today's video. Also, guys, just a quick thank you out there. Much appreciated everybody that's taken time to subscribe here to Intuitive Angling. If you haven't had a chance to do that, I'd like to invite you to hit that subscribe button. It's free and easy. And if I say something you don't agree with or don't like, you can always unsubscribe at any time. So I really appreciate that. Okay, guys, let's talk a little bit about the rod situation. Now, first of all, let me go over a few basics on what what rods are all about. I mean, when you talk about rods, you hear people talk about power and action and tapers and that type of stuff. Now, the taper on a rod or the action on the rod has to do with the tip, how the tip flexes, as far as what part of the tip flexes. In other words, a fast tip rod flexes a lot right at the tip, and that's about it. And a slow taper is the flex goes farther down the rod. So the stiffer the rod, the more it flexes at the tip, and the softer the rod, the more it flexes, throughout the half of the rod length. That's one thing. And the power of a rod, when you hear that, the power refers to the lifting power, how much weight you can actually lift with the rod, which has to do with the stiffness of the overall rod. So that's the main thing to consider with that. Now, first of all, how much should you spend on a rod? I mean, what is too much, or what's not enough, or what are you going to get for your value? Now, rods are so typical, the old cliche, you get what you pay for. It's so true with rods, because the cost of a rod has to do with the cost of the components that make up the rod. In general, one of the things that you're going to find out about a rod that costs more or is a little bit better is the number of guides that it has on it, and the guide construction as far as the materials. The more guides that you have on a rod, usually the better the rod. And also, the component of the guide has a lot to do with it too. Like these megabass ones I have here, these are titanium guides, which are really expensive. If you have like ceramic guides, they're going to be a lot cheaper, but they're going to be a lot heavier. And overall, when you're talking about the sensitivity of a rod, the rod sensitivity has to do with the weight of the rod. The heavier the rod, the less sensitive it's going to be. And also, guys, I'll link my Tackle Warehouse in the description for a bunch of rods if you guys are looking for some good deals. Tackle Warehouse has got a lot of good deals, so if you use that link in the description, you can also support the channel by doing that. So anyway, guys, again, the components have a lot to do with it. Now, that goes back, and same with the reel seat. The reel seat with the component as far as the material, like a graphite or plastic or whatever, cork handle or neoprene, all that factors into it. So when you're dealing with a rod that has cork, graphite handles, titanium guides, lots of titanium guides, and a high quality material that the rod is made of, like this megabass PS5 rod here, you're talking about a high-end rod. So how much should you spend on one? That's the main thing about it. Now, there's a lot of considerations in this, because everybody, unless you're one of the few people out there that are independently wealthy, we're all on a budget. And what you have now with rod manufacturers in the country is you got so many technique-specific rods. You got jig rods, worm rods, crankbait rods, topwater rods, finesse rods, swim bait rods, glide bait rods. You got so many different rods that you could literally spend a freaking fortune if you wanted to get one rod for every technique. So you sort of have to figure out how much you want to spend versus the array of rods you need in order to fish a lot of different techniques. We've actually done a video in the past about how you can have like 3 or 4 rods that accomplish about everything. But overall, what do you need to spend on a rod? From my experience, this is my own personal experience in being around rods and handling rods and all that type of stuff, is the components that are put into a rod, usually the superior components, or rod that feels good, will last you a long time, looks good, sensitive, powerful, just a quality piece of equipment out there, is going to run you between $200 to $500. That is the price range for a premium quality rod. Once you get below $200, you start to notice that decline a little bit, specifically if you get below $100. There are still some good rods in that $100 to $200 range out there that have decent components. But once you start getting below $100, you're going to notice that your components get a lot cheaper, the rod gets heavier, the construction is not quite as precise or artistic. So in my opinion, if you want to have a rod that, like, when you pick up, it feels good and it's going to last you a long time, you have to consider it an investment and take care of it. And that's why, you know, talk a lot about the, you know, the different rod straps that you, or excuse me, the different rod protectors that you can use. You know, like that Evolve rod protector I talked to, that's another good investment that you can have as an angler if you do buy a high quality rod, is make sure you protect it with a good rod sleeve. But I think, guys, that you're looking, again, between $200 to $500 if you want a high quality rod that's going to last a long time. Now, a lot of it also depends on how serious you are about your bass fishing. If you're a guy that likes to go out there a couple times a year and you don't fish tournaments and, you know, you're not serious about it, yeah, you don't have to spend that kind of money on a rod. You can buy a decent bass fishing rod for $100. But if you're, you know, a little bit more serious about your equipment, maybe you fish a few tournaments, club tournaments, maybe you don't fish tournaments, but you really, you know, you're just a serious bass angler that doesn't fish tournaments, it's well worth it to spend $200 or $300 on a rod. If you take care of it and you don't smash the tip on something, or you don't, you know, try to get your bait unhung on a rock and break the tip, it's going to last you a long time. I have got megabass rods, guys, that I've had since the early 2000s that I still use. If you take care of your rods and you buy a high quality rod, it's going to last you a long time. But if you buy a cheap rod, don't expect it to last a long time. Expect the things to fade out on it. Expect even like your eye ties to come apart. Expect there'll be some like nicks and frays within the inside of the rod guide if it's not a high quality guide. Your reel seats will come apart if it's a cheap rod. It's like, you know, from tightening it and loosening it over time, eventually that'll strip out and it'll get loose. So it's all relative to, you know, how long you want the rod to last. But anyway, guys, I will put in the link in the description of the video. I'm going to put in there some rod lines in that frame there, that $200 to $500 range, and then also I'll put some in there a little bit lower priced to cover a little bit of everything. But overall, that's what you're looking at. If I could give you one piece of advice, though, as far as you know, it's the money that you spend on a rod, pay attention to how many guides that you have in a rod. You need at least 7 or 8 guides. That's going to make your sensitivity a lot better, and that's one of the telltale signs of a really high quality rod, the ones that have more guides on it. So anyway, I hope that makes sense, and we'll talk later, guys. Appreciate it.